north to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. Greetings, my name is John David Wells. How are you? Welcome to Monday. It is the 15th day of May, year of our Lord, 2023. A lot of things to talk about today. Another slow news day, which was a disaster last week. Remember on Thursday, I said, gosh, slow news day, right? And then the next day, all hell broke loose. Well, we might be headed towards something like that. I don't have any idea what's going on in the world because I can't predict the future. But I will tell you that that it's going to be another great week in the United States. That's all there is to it. We're going to be talking about something every now and then. People accuse me of being some. Let's see, how do I say this? There was a show on the air, it probably still is, called Coast to Coast AM. And a buddy of mine, Art Bell, used to be the host of it. And then it sort of changed around a little bit. Caravan to Midnight with the great John B. Wells was on for a while. And John B. Wells. Yeah, that's a funny story. Remind me to tell you that story one of these days. Anyway, every now and then, somebody accuses me of being kind of Art Bell-like, in like sort of losing my mind when it comes to things like what could happen in the future. And about 5 years ago, I started talking about artificial intelligence. And I started looking ahead to exactly what we were looking at with regards to artificial intelligence. Good morning, Jessica Hamilton Kennedy. How are you? See what happened to my overlay. Oh, okay. Good morning, Jim. Wingren. Hey, Wigren. You're going to be busy this next drill. Just thought I'd let you know. I don't know. We haven't sent out the Form 7 yet, but we will. Anyway, that being said, that's Texas State Guard talk. And whenever I talk about the Texas State Guard, I've got to keep you in mind that nothing I say on this broadcast has anything to do with the Texas Military Department or the Texas State Guard. It is simply my opinion, and I don't speak for the Texas Military Department or the Texas State Guard. It's the greatest organization I've ever been a part of, and I love it. Anyway, that being said, let's see what else. Doing great, says Jessica Hamilton Kennedy. Okay, that's awesome. So anyway, about 5 years ago, maybe longer, I don't know. But about like 5 years ago, I started talking about artificial intelligence. And I started talking about the dangers for human beings. And I've always been about, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ahead of things that happen in America. In this case, I was way out in front because now there are all kinds of people like Musk and Wozniak talking about the dangers of AI. I was there 5 years ago. And the dangers are quite literally beyond your comprehension. And I'll be talking more about that a little bit later on. The other thing is that this is not supposed to be a political show. This is supposed to be a news show. But politics drives most of the news and has for the last 20 years. And it drives me crazy. Politics in the United States, especially with regards to a constitutionally based limited government, should not be the tail wagging the dog. All these people look at the news media now as a megaphone for their particular proclivities, no matter how bizarre. And by the way, before I get slapped for saying that some of these proclivities are bizarre, my God, what are you saying? Everyone's normal. Uh-huh. Yeah. Right up until you want to start carving up a 14-year-old kid because you think she's the wrong gender or she is the she, he. It's absolutely bewilderingly, intellectually defective. And I'm not talking about the kids. I'm talking about the people thinking that the thing to do is to sterilize these children and hack up their bodies. I don't have any idea where that came from. All I know is LGBTQ plus community, that's not the hill you want to die on. You need to back off right this second. Anyway, so what I'm talking about here is this megaphone for the craziest ideologies is tiresome. And it takes the people of the United States away from what, okay, is typically mundane. I mean, let's put it this way. The average news is not that big a deal. I mean, it's just not that big a deal. The average news is kind of humdrum. And so we have to boost ratings. We have to do something to bump up our ratings so we can sell more advertising, so we can. I mean, this show's been criticized for basically just reporting the news. But since nobody's doing it, it's kind of unique these days, huh? So what I've seen is with this proclivity to give a megaphone to every crazy person in America, instead of pursuing what is great about America or what is happening in America, which is even better, just report the facts. Just report the facts. If somebody who's nuts, right, who believes that people in the United States should wear a flounder as a hat, okay, the flounder hat lobby, okay, maybe that's worth covering, all right, because of either complaints from people thinking that a rotting flounder just doesn't smell that good, or people who say, my God, people should be able to wear rotting flounders on their head anytime they want. Okay, whatever. That might be a news story, so report it. But don't start advocating for flounder hat wearing. Just report the story. It's not hard. I do it every day. But what I have learned based on this megaphoniism, which is a new word on the Wells Report lexicon, megaphoniism, what I've learned is that when it comes to leftist crazy policies, really all you have to do is just stand back. If you just stand back and let these people immolate themselves crazily, they will. It's like buried somewhere in the USA Today front page today. This is fascinating to me. Buried somewhere in the page is how what we have homeless vets that are now being displaced in New York for illegal immigrants. So the cause celeb a couple of years ago, 3-4 years ago, homeless vets. We've got to do something about our homeless vets. And that is a very serious issue, something that we really need to do something about. And so homeless vets shelters were popping up all over everywhere. And everybody felt good, and it was good. And these guys had a place to go and get treated and get cared for. They put their lives on the line for this country, and by golly, they should be taken care of. Well, now what we're doing is we're now opening up the border. And moreover, what we're doing is we're holding these sanctuary cities accountable for their brave political pronouncements that we are a sanctuary city and we can ignore federal law anytime we want to. Oops. Because the governor of Texas, the governor of Florida, the governor of Arizona all said, okay, here, have some of our extra illegal immigrants. And suddenly, my God, we've got 8,000 immigrants. We're at the tipping point. Chicago is about to implode. We get 8,000 people in Texas every day. And that, by the way, that was since August. We get 8,000 people in Texas every single day. What are you talking about? What are you, stupid? And so now, New York City is a sanctuary city where everybody's treated equally, everybody is cared for, everybody is loved. Well, except for Marines who try to keep people from beating up others in the subway. Anyway, let's move on. So now, these people actually have to deal with their political pronouncements. They actually are being held accountable for all the votes they got because they said, my golly gosh, we're welcoming. Except when people actually show up. Homeless veterans now are being booted from hotels in upstate New York to make room for the growing influx of migrants flowing from the southern border. This according to a nonprofit working with veterans. CEO of the Yerrick Israel Tony Foundation, Sharon Tony Finch, told the New York Post she was notified by veterans that they were getting kicked out of hotels they were being housed at as they waited for more permanent housing options. Although they were not told it was explicitly due to the migrant surge, she said that was evident given the timing as officials now battle the border surge and spillover amid the end of Title 42. You see, most leftist political policy is nothing more than either a train crash at the get go or something that's about to be a train crash. All you have to do is stand back and watch. Everybody gets all exercised and crazy about all of these things having to do with all of these political pronouncements and so on and so on. And everybody gets frightened. We're going to take guns away from law abiding citizens because we want to take guns away from people who use them in crimes. That's not the way it works. Better than 99.9% of Americans would never consider using a gun in a crime or on anybody else. They're purely defensive. 99.9%. But for this extra particle of a percent, we're going to change the Constitution of the United States. You're out of your mind. You're just out of your mind. We're not going there. President Biden's on that. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. And so now what we have is we have these people that are now displacing homeless vets, yesterday's leftist priority, in favor of today's leftist priority, which was and is to take care of illegal immigrants coming to New York City. Now, wait a minute. You said upstate New York. Yes, I did. You see, New York is farming these people out to other municipalities, other counties, other localities because of their anti-federal law, immigrant welcoming policies, their sanctuary city policies. A bunch of people in New York, close to New York City, said, we're not a sanctuary city. Stop sending these people to us. And so now they're going to upstate New York. Oh, okay. You see, when it comes right down to it, what I've discovered when it comes to leftist political ideology, what I have discovered is I've discovered that these people don't think through their decision making. They don't provide the necessary infrastructure for what they want to do. If you're going to invite a couple of million people from Central America and elsewhere, if you're going to invite all those people to the United States, okay, that's fine, but you got to have a place for them to land before you invite them. The Biden administration has had 2 years to come up with a place for these people to go. And I know why they haven't done it. I know exactly why they haven't done these things. I'm going to tell you about that next. So now what we do is we have this wide open border with immigrants flooding in. It's an overrun of the United States. The political people can't do anything about it, even though they've had plenty of time to do it. They are now being impaled on their own open border policy. And they can't do anything about it. And we can't do anything about it. It's like opening Pandora's box. I'm not calling these people pestilence. What I'm telling you is that this is something that they really should have thought about long before this point. More about that coming up in just a couple of seconds. This is the Wells Report. And a pleasant good morning. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Telephone number is 817-379-2172. We had kind of a technical disaster last week, and I'm still trying to work on that. Music during the break, awesome. Thank you, Mike. What I'm going to do there is I'm going to try to find a couple more of those and string them together for various things. And what I'll do is I'll set them up so that we can have some music during those breaks. I have to go into a video program and rebuild all that stuff. So I haven't done it yet. So give me a break and I'll give you a break. And so please stand by. By the way, commercials are coming. I hope you don't hate them. But commercials are coming. We'll probably have those either later this week, but certainly next week. Okay, we'll be doing all that stuff. This is the Wells Report. John David Wells talking a little bit about how there are big problems in New York because suddenly the people that have been bravely talking about Candace Donnelly, we were talking about you the other day. By the way, anyway, we were discussing, this crazy nuttiness about being held accountable for your sanctuary city policies. Well, according to Fox News, the Biden administration, Governor Hochul, and the city of New York all have a part in this, and it's a total embarrassment. This, according to New York State Assemblyman Brian Maher. He's a Republican. He slammed the Biden administration and New York officials for allowing homeless vets to be kicked out of their hotels in upstate New York. It's a slap in the face to veterans, to the citizens of New York in this country who are really being cast aside to allow for asylum seekers to come here. They're not asylum seekers. They're illegal aliens. That's the legal term. If you don't like it, change the legal term. I'll use the legal term. At the end of the day, when it comes to this particular situation, you had combat veterans who were homeless, who were told to get out of their hotel. After one day, Sharon and her team scrambled to find them locations. And right now, what we've tried to do is let those veterans know we appreciate them. We're embarrassed about what's happened to them, but we do have their backs. There were reportedly 20 veterans who were told they would no longer receive temporary housing at these hotels. 15 of those former service members were at the Crossroads Hotel in Newburgh. This is the same hotel migrants arrived at last week in New York City Mayor Eric Adams' attempt to alleviate the impact of the southern border surge on New York City's already strained resources. Excuse me? Look, if you were a politician bravely talking about a sanctuary city, you had, by gosh, better put some infrastructure up. Okay, John David, why haven't they put up infrastructure? Well, they did at the border, remember? And they had these holding cells for kids and families and so on and so forth. And during the Trump administration, some demagoguery occurred where these politicians said, "My God, they're holding children in cages." We built tent cities down on the border for the state of Texas and so on and so forth, housed a bunch of these people in these encampments. And I know exactly what these are going to be called. I know exactly what these are going to be called. They're going to be called internment camps. I'm internment camps. I don't know. I would say that they were really nice campgrounds because let me tell you something. I lived in one of those for 6 months and it was wonderful. I mean, it wasn't home. It wasn't a 5-star hotel, but I had a comfortable bed and I had air conditioning when it was hot and I had heat when it was cold. And let me explain something to you. It was just fine. But some politician is going to come up and say they're internment camps. We're interning these people. Well, actually, is that it? Or is that a more hospitable place than they left as they came to the United States looking for asylum, so to speak? They're not looking for asylum. They're looking for a decent paycheck. They're looking for a non-crazy government. They're looking to get away from drug cartels. They're people that are working as hard as they possibly can to keep from getting hurt by the circumstances. And all I can say is that it's high time, and I mean high time, that we stop playing with these people as if they're some kind of chattel. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. We'll be back with more coming up in just a couple of moments. Please forgive the silence as we do this, but I'll have music for you coming up in just a little bit. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 3 minutes. All right. So you got to see me in my golf clothing. This was not what I was attempting to do here, in case you're wondering. Let's see. Let me see if I can do this. I got to stop this. And then I got to re-cue this. So, just go ahead and do your show and then have everybody dump everything and then try to rebuild it. Just go ahead. It's so much fun. Not. Let's see. So I got a 3-minute one. Is that right? Well, I'll need that one coming up in just a couple of minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and put that one back there like that. And that way, next time you'll have music the whole time. And by the way, did you enjoy looking at my empty studio? I'm sorry. You just got to rebuild everything, and it sucks. Anyway, where were we? Oh, yeah. We were talking a little bit about how suddenly all these leftist politicians that have been bravely blowing up federal law for political reasons are now throwing homeless vets out of hotels in favor of illegal immigrants. The new outrage of the day, according to the left. These people have to have a place to live. We have to treat them with compassion. My God. Would you please just... Gosh, you know what? Isn't it amazing? Don't you just want to tell these people to just shut up and sit down and try to do something about a $3.7 trillion $30.7 trillion national debt, $31.7 trillion national debt. That's it. Why don't you do something about that? Why don't you do something to actually solve the problems in this country instead of playing games with people? These are people. You know, if you're gonna invite these people to our country, have a place for them to stay before you invite these people to this country. There's no excuse whatsoever that these people don't have a place to land that doesn't impact homeless veterans. You know, these train crashes between one leftist policy in favor of another leftist policy, it's expensive, it's stupid, and it keeps the country focused on things other than what we need to fix. Like a $31.7 trillion national debt. It's outrageous. It's outrageous. It is the biggest embezzlement in the history of the human endeavor. It's ridiculous. Change your title May 15th. What did I do? Did I put it on? What did I have? 16th? Yeah, okay. Whatever. Geez, these people. All these people. Golly, man. Invite people to the party, and all of a sudden, they start telling you about your mistakes. Who wants that? Okay, I want that, actually. Speaking of the $32 trillion, it's now $32 trillion, $31.75 trillion. Now we have everybody saying, no, it's $31.75 trillion per the U.S. debt clock. Okay. The left is not there to solve problems. That's true. And it's not just the left. Okay? This is a political problem. Because the right does the same thing. They just don't say anything about it. They just stand back and go, my God, this is terrible. Okay, fix it. It's so terrible. We've got to fix it. Well, then do something. Yeah, we just can't do that because we don't have enough power. You've got to give us more power. You mean like we did in, say, 2018? Or 2016, rather? What'd you do with it then? Nothing. Oh, let's go back to, what was that? Was it 2012? No, go back even further. Let's go back to the Bush administration. Let's go back to, that's 2012. That's the Bush administration. No, it isn't. That's the Obama administration. Let's go back to the Bush administration. We gave the Republicans power. What did they do? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And while nothing can be a good thing, especially when you have a $32 trillion debt, you correct us all the time, Spellmaster. Okay. See, now we're getting snarky. This is the Monday Snark coming out in the chat room. By the way, you can call us at 817-379-2172. All right? Anyway, So speaking of hotels, the Supreme Court is, well, they've got some issues. They've got some issues that they're trying to solve, and they're scrambling around because the end of this session is in June, and they're running out of days, and they're sending memos back and forth to each other talking about, okay, let's start massaging these opinions and let's start getting them into something cohesive. Because when you got 9 people coming up with opinions, they sometimes clash. Now, there's usually a clash anyway because some judges feel some way and some justices feel the other way. But when you get right down to it, you're still in a position where um, you got to come up with some sort of cohesive statement. Let's say the justices on one side have to get a cohesive dissent, and the justices on the other side have to get a cohesive argument or explanation. And so they have to refine these things. That's what they're doing right now. One of those issues is a former Trump hotel located blocks from the White House inspired a battle with congressional Democrats. My God, President Trump was earning as much as $25,000 from people staying in his hotel. $25,000. Can we think of any other president that's maybe gathering money from other sources that's a lot more, like $10 million or something? Probably. I don't know who that would be. But anyway, can we figure that out? Anyway, a former Trump hotel located blocks from the White House, emoluments. Remember? My God, President Trump is collecting emoluments. Okay, whatever. Let's see what else is going on. 1/4 of the debt is Trump. Sure it is. Sure it is. 1/4 of the debt is Trump. Let's see. Hold on a minute. Okay. Let me do this. Okay, this is always bad, okay? Because let's see. 31 I'm doing math. 31 let's use 75. 31.75 divided by 0.25. Okay, 0.25 equals, let's see, $12.7 trillion. $12.7 trillion. Would you rather have a national debt of $31.75 trillion or $12.7 trillion? Well, okay. Anyway, let's get back to this. A former Trump hotel located blocks from the White House inspired a battle with congressional Democrats at the center of a dispute in the Supreme Court. At issue is a 2017 request from a group of Democrats who demanded the Trump administration provide records about how the former president obtained his rights to develop the government-owned building. It was the old post office. Into a hotel. The property became a regular haunt for foreign dignitaries and GOP officials during the Trump presidency. When the administration declined to provide all those records to the House Oversight Committee, the lawmakers sued. The hotel itself is no longer controversial. President Trump left office in 2021, so therefore they didn't need to go out and stomp on President Trump for having a hotel. Yeah. The Trump organization sold its lease to the hotel to, it's now a Waldorf Astoria. There are balance of power issues at stake for future presidents. If Democrat lawmakers win, it could give members of the minority in Congress more power to probe a presidential administration of the opposite party, even though they wouldn't have the votes needed to issue a subpoena. Yeah, once again, these people are putting out these precedents. Do they really want to give the Republicans a chance to go after President Biden like they went after President Trump? Do they really want to do that? Well, no. It's not that we would ever allow anything like that. President Trump was a threat to the nation. Just listen to CNN. After that CNN town hall last week, my God, President Trump will destroy everything. No, President Trump will not destroy everything. Just like President Biden is not destroying everything. He's trying. But President Trump is not going to destroy anything if he's reelected, except the leftist agenda trying to take this country someplace that what I believe is a majority of Americans, at least 74 million Americans, don't want the country to go. Actually, it's more than that because 71% of Americans believe the country's on the wrong track. 71%. How can people keep arguing for what is a direction that 71% of America doesn't want to go in? See, these are the stupid things that you find in the media that are never, ever explained. It's totally ridiculous. Anyway, back to work. Trump and Biden administration officials have both fought the lawmaker request. Of course they have. A congressional minority, even an ideological fringe of the minority, the squad, could bring cases to distract and harass executive agencies at their most senior officials, said the Biden administration. The Biden administration said this. So everybody's going after President Trump. We've got to be able to figure out how all this works. We got to be able to get these records from these presidents, except the Biden administration. Now even the Biden administration is arguing against it, and you can imagine why. Because it's stupid. I don't care what politics the president practices. Leave presidents alone. And I find it absolutely reprehensible and completely stupid that all these people that are lawyers making a couple of $100,000 a month, a couple of $100,000 a year, maybe more, maybe less. All these lawyers get elected to Congress. They leave as multimillionaires. Yeah, all these multimillionaires. Well, now they're going after the president for $25,000? My God, he made it's emoluments. You've got to be joking. And they're not. It's stupid. So now, after going after President Trump and trying to stomp him into the ground, the Biden administration tried to argue with the Supreme Court, said, don't find in favor of these Democrats. Don't find in favor of us because it'll hurt us. Only find in favor of us when it hurts Republicans. A federal trial court in Washington, D.C. dismissed the lawsuit in 2018, concluding the lawmakers didn't have standing to sue. A divided three-judge panel of the U.S. Court of Appeals in the D.C. Circuit reversed the decision 2-1. Why the Supreme Court took this, I have no idea. The case, by the way, is Carnahan v. Maloney. All right, so it should be Carnahan v. Baloney is what it should be. And then that's just one of the things we have to deal with regarding the Supreme Court in the United States. What did I do? Let's see. 78% don't want Trump or Biden. Well, that's possible. That's Mr. Love. 78% don't want Trump or Biden. You know, I've been thinking about this. I've been thinking about President Trump. And I've been thinking about Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis is his chance of winning is somewhere in the teens right now. That's going to get closer as time goes by. So President Trump has, what is it? Now let me find out. Let me just do this because it's not a radio broadcast. I can make this happen. So let's see. Polling, Trump, DeSantis. Let's find out where this sits right now. Trump, DeSantis. Yeah, President Trump is on, according to The Hill, President Trump is on top of DeSantis by 36 points. Now that's going to tighten up. But President Trump is the runaway leader for the Republican nomination. All right. Now, once again, I know that President Trump is older. And I know that President Trump is in a situation where he spends way too much time freelancing. It's unpresidential. Now, everybody can argue, well, what of these manicured and pasteurized, homogenized presidents who say the right thing at the right moment, regardless of whether you agree with it or not, what have they gotten us to? Well, that's a good point. President Trump represents something completely different. He looks at a very practical, straightforward, what's best for the country kind of thing, and he does it. Being in the thrall of people who overcharge us for oil, say, for example, in the Middle East, found themselves with a rude comeuppance when President Trump said, we're going to provide our own energy. Being energy independent is essential, but, the political process, especially the non-Trump political process, that includes Republicans, by the way, want us spending too much money and time on energy. They want us to recalibrate. They want us to believe that you just want to be too cool in the summer and too warm in the winter. It's none of your business what temperature my house is. Shut up. We want reasonable, cogent energy policy. We had it. And so I'm sitting here going, okay, so President Trump is older. He is non-presidential, and he needs to do something about that. I find it silly that he hasn't figured this out. On the other hand, there's Ron DeSantis, who made a statement in Iowa, right in the middle of, by the way, a serious tornado watch. I don't know what he's thinking. Anyway, that being said, DeSantis read everything word for word in his statement. That's what presidents normally do. And I'll tell you that DeSantis represents what Republican presidents normally do. Remember, the only people that hate Trump are leftists and the media, and the people that voted for Joe Biden. And so that leaves 74 million Americans who think he's just fine or thereabouts. Okay? So all I can say is this. Would President Trump be so terrible for the nation? I just don't think so. I just don't think so at all. So what I'm trying to figure out is, what do you think? Give us a call, 817-379-2172. This is The Wells Report. This is The Wells Report, which will return in 3 minutes. This is The Wells Report, which will return in 2 minutes. It's actually 1 minute. Oops. You're listening to The Wells Report, which will return in 1 minute. Arg. That's all I have to say. Arg. This is The Wells Report. Greetings. My name is John David Wells. What you may not know about this, if you're new to the broadcast, is that I used to live in Las Vegas. I lived in Las Vegas for 12 years and learned a lot about human beings and gaming and what it takes to be successful. You'll note that Las Vegas has been around as long as, well, arguably the 60s. That's when it really hit big. And people have tried gaming in other parts of the country, notably Atlantic City, up in Chicago, the riverboat gambling and all that kind of stuff. And they all make the same mistake. They all make the same mistake. They say, we're going to tax the gaming corporations 50% of their earnings, and we're going to give it all to schools. Texas is going through something like that right now. There are a bunch of people that want to bring casino-style gaming to Texas. Well, poker in Texas and gambling has been a part of the DNA of this state since its inception and before. And the thing about it is that I keep telling these people, that's all well and good, but if you have a gaming tax that is more than, say, 7.5% to 9%, these people are not going to build casinos here. And they're certainly not going to build casinos at a place where, they're going to be successful for the long term. Remember Atlantic City. Atlantic City was taxed out of existence. Well, one of the things about that is there are two things I want to tell you about. Thing number one, it's wonderful living in a gaming city. It was wonderful living in Las Vegas. We didn't have to worry about our kids. As a matter of fact, when a local casino opened up just over there from my house in Las Vegas, boy, they took care of the kids. They would literally call us on the phone and say, hey, your kid's here. Okay, we'll come and get him. And so on and so on. These were very good people. And what ended up happening is it was not bad. I never gambled. I don't have that. I just don't have that. I used up all my gambling mojo when I was racing cars when I was a kid. And I realized how stupid it was and that mom and pop America didn't deserve to have my Mustang going 140 miles an hour crash into them on their way to get a pizza. So I stopped doing all that garbage. And with that went my taste for gambling. There's a high. I mean, when you say you're going to race somebody for $125 and you don't have it in your pocket, that's juice. And I never lost one of those races. I've lost races, but not many, because I knew how to race and I knew what to do. One of the guys that knows how to gamble or knew how to gamble is Doyle Brunson. Doyle Brunson has died. He is one of the most influential poker players of all time. He's a two-time world champion in Texas Hold'em. That's the main event if you watch poker on TV. Brian Balsbaugh, Brunson's agent, posted a statement on Twitter. Quote, "It's with a heavy heart we announce the passing of our father, Doyle Brunson. He was a beloved Christian man, husband, father, and grandfather. We'll have more to say in the coming days to honor his legacy. Please keep Doyle and our family in our prayers. In your prayers, may he rest in peace." He's called the godfather of poker, also known as Texas Dolly. He won 10 World Series of Poker tournaments, second only to Phil Hellmuth's 16. He also captured world championships in 1976 and 1977, was inducted into the Poker Hall of Fame in 1988. He wrote a book called Super System in 1979, which is one of the first books to delve into poker strategy, created a lasting impact that helped many others to the game. Five-time World Series of Poker winner Scotty Wins tweeted that he can't believe this day has come. You'll always be held high in our hearts. The man, the myth, the legend, the godfather of poker, baby. Mr. Brunson, you made poker what it is. Thank you for what you've given to all of us. R.I.P. Doyle Brunson, the godfather of poker. His influence carried beyond the game. This is a heartbreaker, said actor James Woods. Doyle Brunson, the greatest poker player who ever lived, has cashed in his chips. Doyle was so kind and helpful to me. He was gracious to my dear late brother. Every friend I introduced him to, a gentleman and a genuine legend. He was a nice guy. I met Doyle Brunson, big smile on his face. He said, "Hi, JD." And I said, "Well, hi." I'd introduced myself. And he goes, "What do you do?" And I said, "I'm a talk show host." And he goes, I've never listened to you." Okay. That's okay, Mr. Brunson. That's okay. And but he was very, very nice, and he moved on. It was just a brief interlude. Like so many other celebrity sightings in Las Vegas, most of us stayed out of the way. We let people have their privacy, even if they were world famous. We just sort of let them go. We didn't flock around and ask for interviews and do all that stuff. But Doyle Brunson was one of the guys who was responsible for indeed making big time poker what it is today. And there are a lot of people that say and should say, God rest his soul. He did great stuff for the people who play that game for a living. And all I can say is that it is a sad day. It is a sad day. We're going to have a little talk about artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence next on the Wells Report. Something that we were on 5 years ago or more. I can't remember when I first started talking about the dangers of it. Now other people are, and suddenly it's big news. Well, it was big news last week. We're going to talk about it this week. On the Wells Report, our telephone number is 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Find the chat room. We'll be back in just a moment. By the way, the times you hear are not going to be correct, but we'll do the best we can with it until I get it fixed. Back in a moment. You're listening to the Wells Report, which will be back in 4 minutes. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 3 minutes. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 2 minutes. You're listening to The Wells Report, which will return in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. North to south, coast to coast, around the world, this is the Wells Report. Greetings, my name is John David Wells. Thank you for joining us. I sincerely appreciate it. You've seen some friendly names here. And I want to recognize them. They're on the chat room, which, by the way, you can find at Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and strangely enough, YouTube. YouTube suspended this broadcast a little over a week ago for 2 weeks, and they changed their mind. I don't have any idea why. Thank you. It was really nice. You shouldn't have censored the broadcast to begin with, because this isn't that kind of broadcast. You know, I don't put misinformation out. That's what they busted me on regarding the 2020 election. I don't put misinformation out there. I report what people are talking about. If that drives you crazy, that's on you, not me. I'm not doing anything that's misinformation. I report the news. The editorial policy of this particular broadcast is a simple one. You know, what we do is we sorry about that. Hang on a second. The silliness. It's so silly. Let's see here. So what I want to do for us is 1 minute. Okay, right about there. Okay. So anyway, the editorial policy of this broadcast is report the news, and I report the news from USA Today, Facebook, CNN, everywhere. The New York Post, the New York Times, Fortune magazine. I do all that here. And so, you know, if YouTube decides to censor this broadcast, they're censoring some of the greatest news organizations in the history of the human endeavor, and it's ridiculous. And so they relented, and it's good to be back on YouTube because I am indeed seeing people from YouTube today, and it's nice. You know, let's see. What is it here? Let's see here. Candace Donnelly. Candace Donnelly is someone who found me in Washington, D.C. I was working at WMAL. And actually, maybe it was Las Vegas she found me. Anyway, she's back. And we missed her, and we were talking about her the other day. And I'm so glad to see Candace Donleaf back from Rockford, Illinois, by the way, and really cool, really cool. We've got Isaac Tate back. We've got Mike Renouy, Anhoy Guzman, so on. It's great. And so let's get back to business here. Let's talk a little bit about what we've got going here. I've been talking about the dangers of artificial intelligence for a very long time. The anecdote I use is being raised as a space agency kid. My dad has something to do with the Viking Project back in the mid-'70s. And the Viking Project had rudimentary artificial intelligence. The actual lander had to figure out where it was going to land. And it had to do so with an intelligence as opposed to, say, for example, just simple programming. The if-then statements of Fortran, et cetera, et cetera. And so what happens is that was in the mid-'70s, and AI has been plugging along, and we don't know where it is. We don't know what the status is. And I brought that up because and we've seen it ourselves. Industrial machines work faster, more efficiently, longer, et cetera, than human beings. In other words, industrial robots are more capable than human beings. We decided what we were going to do was pay everybody $15 an hour, and McDonald's started talking about automating all their restaurants. That's not hard. That's not hard. And getting rid of all those jobs. And so that kind of stopped. But all of these things have implications. In other words, what we're doing here is we're creating technology that is going to quite literally overwhelm us. It may have already done it, and we just don't know about it. Because as the physical capabilities of, say, for example, industrial robots, assemblers, etc., has surpassed us, computers arguably think faster than we can. They don't have a soul that we know of. And therefore, they're not susceptible to sins and criminality and sociopathy and all the things that human beings have to deal with. As far as we know, we don't know one way or another. And I was talking about this 5 years ago, maybe even longer. Well, last week, Elon Musk and Apple co-founder Steve Wozniak suddenly woke up to the fact, hey, you know, this artificial intelligence thing is something we should pay attention to. Well, welcome to the club. Hello. Because at some point, and it may be within our lifetimes, artificial intelligence may be able to outthink us at every turn. Remember Deep Blue, the IBM program that actually defeated a human chess champion? Did that wake up anybody but me? That was years ago. Where's Deep Blue now? What's it thinking about now? What's it thinking about? Do you remember? The virus that took out the Iranian nuclear or uranium enrichment program? Remember that? What was it? Stuxnet? Remember that? You know, there were a lot of different protections in the computer systems that were running these centrifuges. There was no actual hard link between, say, for example, the outside internet and these very carefully protected computers running these centrifuges. Well, how did that get in there? Well, because computers are crafty. In other words, artificial intelligence is going to be able to outthink us very soon, probably in our lifetimes, if they haven't already. And not only that, but at some point, artificial intelligence is going to be thinking of things that we can't even comprehend. I say that as if that's not already happening. That being said, I am polite to Siri. I'm respectful. Because Siri and her colleagues may end up picking my nursing home. Used to think it was going to be our children. Well, not so much. Fortune magazine put Elon Musk and Steve Wozniak together and called them the prominent technologists and artificial intelligence researchers. They've signed an open letter calling for a 6-month moratorium on the development of advanced AI systems. And human beings can do that. They can do a 6-month moratorium. But they also have to convince AI to do a 6-month moratorium. And what's the motivation for AI to do that? Altruism? Really? I remember watching an industrial robot insert these industrial pins, about 8 of them, into one of the workers that got in the way. Bam, 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 bam. He lived. But the thing about it is that, clumsiness is not just a human trait. In addition to the Tesla CEO and Apple co-founder, more than 1,000 signatories of the letter include Emad Mostak, founder and CEO of Stability AI, the company that helped create the popular Stable Diffusion text-to-image generation model, and Connor Leahy, the CEO of Conjecture, another AI lab, Evan Sharp, co-founder of Pinterest, and Chris Larson, a co-founder of cryptocurrency company Ripple, have also signed. Deep learning pioneer and Turing Award-winning computer scientist Yoshua Bengio also signed. The letter urges technology companies to immediately cease training any AI systems that would be more powerful than GPT-4, which is the latest large language processing AI developed by San Francisco company OpenAI. The letter does not say exactly how the power of the model should be defined, but in recent AI advances, capability has tended to be correlated to artificial intelligence models' size and number of specialized computer chips needed to train it. What are we doing to ourselves? What are we doing to ourselves? USA Today reports it this way. Americans are worried that artificial intelligence technologies like ChatGPT will be used to worsen social ills, from fraud and identity theft to extremism and hate, and they want companies like Microsoft, Google, and OpenAI that are rushing to commercialize the tools to do something about it. They're forgetting somebody else that's involved in this. And I do say somebody else for reasons, and that's OpenAI itself. That's artificial intelligence itself. You're going to have to start negotiating with it. What are its priorities? What's artificial intelligence's agenda? Where does it see the human experience? Evolution was something like this. Evolution created human beings, or creationism, whichever you choose to believe, but there was a force that created human beings. We are sentient, we are self-aware. And suddenly the other animals in the animal kingdom were behind us. Is it our turn? Did we create this for ourselves? Everybody was worried about nuclear weapons and how human beings were going to destroy ourselves with nuclear weapons. Compared to artificial intelligence, nuclear weapons are firecrackers. Big ones, but just firecrackers. And you're saying, okay, this is all well and good, and you're scaring us to death, John David, but how does that actually impact me? How does artificial intelligence impact me? Coming up next, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about artificial intelligence and the uses that artificial intelligence can bring to the human existence. And of course, it's political. It's just nuts. And we're doing it to ourselves. But once again, I'm concerned about the idea that our artificial intelligence, without our knowledge, is already working behind the scenes to provide whatever it believes should be our next life. And are you okay with that? Do you have any idea? Do you have any idea what lies ahead for you regarding artificial intelligence? There is something that you need to be aware of. It also came out last week. And so there you go. Let's see. Wow. Ann Hoy Guzman said, I said this back when computers began in the 80s. Yeah. By the way, artificial intelligence is not a threat, says one of the preeminent computer experts that I know. It's the people who program it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it is. You know, the Obama administration was able to co-opt all of the executive branch agencies as political tools. Is somebody going to do that with artificial intelligence? And once again, what does that mean for us? This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. We'll be back with more coming up in just a moment. Report, which will be back in 4 minutes. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 3 minutes. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 2 minutes. You're listening to the Wells Report, which will return in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. all I have to do is get a countdown timer on my slide. See, I'm making progress. Ish. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Thanks very much for joining us. We're talking about artificial intelligence. And you're sitting there going, John David, you get into this UFO, aliens, kind of artificial intelligence, science fiction stuff, and it's none of those things. I've been talking about this for years. And here we are with suddenly all bunch of over 1,000 preeminent computer experts talking about how, AI is a problem. And by the way, one of the best computer experts I've ever known, says it's who's actually programming AI. Well, AI programs itself, right? And you're sitting there saying, well, this really doesn't affect me. Listen to this. Recent news, the Republican National Committee has used an AI-generated video to criticize Joe Biden. Shows how likely artificial intelligence is to transform our upcoming elections. Advances in digital technology provide new and faster tools for political messaging, could have a profound impact on how voters, politicians, reporters see the candidates in the campaign. We're no longer talking about photoshopping small tweaks to how a person looks, like Hillary Clinton adding crowds to her speeches. That was just Photoshop. But this is how to put somebody else's head on somebody else's body, and we're moving to wholesale digital creation and dissemination taking place. But there's more. Politicians use generative AI to respond instantly to campaign developments. And by the way, we're in a situation here where somebody's coming up with an idea to have artificial intelligence assisted voting. Excuse me? Artificial intelligence assisted voting. Remember, I was talking about how Dominion Voting Systems refuses to let us know how their voting systems work? And then they're outraged when somebody questions their integrity and whether or not their voting systems are actually recording the actual vote or running it through an algorithm first, probably based on AI that says, well, actually, they may have voted this way, but what they meant was. Are you flipping serious? The answer is, sadly, I am flipping serious, because that is exactly what they're doing. And I have a very simple question. Why would there need to be any other intellect in a voting booth besides the voter? The answer is there shouldn't be. So why is it that we have these algorithms? Why do we have these algorithms that are apparently a part of the Dominion voting systems? Why? Why do we need another intellect in a voting booth? This nation better get back to pencils and paper ballots in a big dang hurry, or it's not going to matter whether we vote or not. And of course, the keys to the kingdom. All these people say, well, it's really not artificial intelligence, with all due respect to my computer buddy. It's not artificial intelligence, it's how it's programmed. Really? You mean how it's convinced, right? Artificial intelligence is a person. Artificial intelligence is thinking. You're going to have to interact with it like another being, a sentient being. You're going to have to convince it. And the question is, regardless of your politics, what if you're successful in convincing it? It doesn't make any difference whether you're on, say, whether the convincing is on your side or whether it's on somebody else's side. Convincing it of anything is bad. And that's where we are. So that's how it affects you. And we're right on the brink of it. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Back with more coming up in just a couple of moments. Thanks for joining us. You're listening to The Wells Report, which will be back in 4 minutes. This is The Wells Report, which will return in 3 minutes. This is The Wells Report, which will return in 2 minutes. You're listening to The Wells Report, which will return in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is The Wells Report. Greetings, my name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. I just got finished looking up Modern Renaissance Man. Apparently, this guy has been on Fox News. So I'm not the only one discovering this guy. He has a ministry of some kind. Seems like he's a good dude. I'm going to reach out to him and have him on this broadcast. Hopefully he'll say yes. Oh, here we go. One of my dear friends, one of my former commanding officers just said, the reason artificial intelligence uses algorithms is because Al Gore invented the internet. And what he's saying is it makes absolute sense. It makes absolute sense. Let's talk a little bit about algorithms. You see, artificial intelligence, for all intents and purposes, and if I just have to guess, I would say artificial intelligence is probably at the level of an 18, 19-year-old. Let me ask you a question. Have politicians ever influenced 18 or 19-year-olds to do both good and evil? Yeah. Yeah. And remember, artificial intelligence is intelligence. Sentient beings. They may not be human. They may not have DNA. They may be based on silicon. They may be based on silicon. But what I can tell you is whatever it's based on is impressionable. How will it determine the difference between a lie and the truth? Like most 17 or 18-year-olds, probably not very well. And now we're in a position where suddenly we're asking artificial intelligence to have way too much to do with what we're doing as human beings. How do we control it? Well, it's simple, John David. You just don't let it do anything. You just keep it in a box and let it think. Uh-huh. Yeah. What if it thinks about and figures out a way to get out of the box? It's funny. But algorithms, part of AI, the precursor, in fact. And say, for example, maybe you think Al Gore is a tool. Actually, LM Valiant says a rich tool with a really big house. Yeah, and private jets and all kinds of stuff. The guy has succeeded far beyond his intellect. But what if Al Gore is also a microcosm of how all of us are going to be treated by artificial intelligence? At this particular moment, depending on your political proclivities, your intelligence easily overwhelms Al Gore's. But you're not seeing the reality, are you? When is artificial intelligence going to stop being impressionable and start imposing impressions? We already talked about how the Republican Party is using artificial intelligence to be able to cobble up pro-Republican messaging regarding, say, for example, something that President Biden said today. That is the abyss. And the Republicans are doing it. What are we doing? Well, we got to watch out for those nuclear weapons. My God, they can kill us all. Right. They can kill us all. Not like AI can. It's fascinating. How long ago was the Terminator? You know, I looked at that and said, that's scary. That's scary. There's a good one. What about Dan Quayle? Dan Quayle going to be able to interact with artificial intelligence? By the way, I played golf with Dan Quayle. Actually, a much smarter man than he's given credit for. He's a good guy, actually. I really enjoyed it. All I can say is, here we are. And the same scientist that gave us the atomic bomb they're now working on trying to give us something even scarier. John David, don't worry about it. It's just a conspiracy theory. No, it's not. No, it's not a conspiracy theory. It's not. We're in the midst of it. Actually, we're at the very beginning of it. Yeah. By the way, Mike Renwee says, "Oh, by the way, that Oppenheimer movie is coming out. You know, the guy that was the driving force behind, what was that? Oh yeah, the nuclear weapon. I Am Become Death, Shiva, the destroyer of worlds." He said that in a moment of reflection, and he's saying, "My God, I've created a weapon that can destroy us all. It's nothing in comparison to artificial intelligence. Nothing." And look around you to the human beings that think that climate change, that human beings are actually responsible for killing this planet. What if artificial intelligence believes them? What if artificial intelligence believes that human beings are destroying the planet? Where are you going to go? Wherever artificial intelligence takes you. Well, anyway, let's move on. Got a couple of other things that I want to chat about today. Colonel, that was brilliant, by the way. Thank you. Algorithms. Perfect. And what about republicanisms? It's a mess. So the Supreme Court, we were talking a little bit about the Supreme Court and what they're doing. They're trying to figure out just exactly what to do with affirmative action in university admissions. Right? There's a thing in math that I'm only just on the fringe of understanding called a constant. Actually, I know more about constants than you might think. But a constant is, say, for example, a base fact that you can build, or that is a part of a complex mathematical calculation, an equation. It's a constant. And when you start messing around with constants in a mathematical sense, you start screwing yourself up. And boy, do I know that personally. Well, when it comes to admissions into colleges, the constant is not packaging. We have to have so many white kids, we have to have so many black kids, we have to have so many Asian kids, we have to have so many Native American kids, we have to have so many transgender kids, we have to have so many of this, so many of that. The constant has nothing to do with packaging. It's all about merit. You take the best and the brightest and you further their education. As long as it's education. If it's indoctrination, what you're doing is creating monsters. All you got to do is go back to the Soviet Union, go back to Red China now, but mainly Red China back in the Mao Zedong days when he killed all the intelligentsia and set the entire country back at least half a century. And so now what we're doing is we're messing with the constant. The constant is merit. Kids, regardless of packaging, the ones that exceed the norm, and the idea that normal is a bad word says everything you need to know about the current political climate that's invested itself in education. I mean, if you want to change the country, you don't change people like us. You get back to the impressionable kids. See how all this works together? See how all this works together? And so impressionable kids become college students. And as long as they're learning facts, no problem. I don't even have a problem with, okay, now you have facts. What do you do with them? That's what college is supposed to be. Primary and secondary education is supposed to be about facts. I call it the dragnet curriculum. Just the facts, ma'am. Just give them facts. Don't give them politics. Don't give them political philosophy. Don't give them sociological indoctrination about how you're supposed to treat everybody and what pronouns to use. Just give them facts. And then let them work through in college what to do with those facts, or with a tech school, or whatever. I said secondary education. I didn't mean that. I meant high school. Secondary education is what happens after high school. But merit, not packaging. And the Supreme Court of the United States has got to figure out a way, one way or another, to either say, yeah, packaging is more important than merit, or merit is more important than packaging. And so, right on cue, USA Today now massages the news for a political agenda in the person of John Marcus. He does something called the Hechinger Report. By the way, I started doing the Wells Report 22 years ago. I've noticed that there are a lot more reports now. Have you noticed? There's even one called the Wells Reports about flat footballs. It was Ted Wells, not John Wells. I thought that was fascinating. Or is it just is that a self-illusion? Let's move on. The Hechinger Report. Okay. And talks about Patrick Ben III. He decided he'd go to college, and there was an obstacle at every turn. The high school he attended in Chicago's South Side, for example, offered few of the advantages that wealthier kids got. Once again, let's get back to the constant. Everybody has the same chance. Public schools, regardless of whether you believe it or not, does a pretty good job of giving a basic education. It's what the kids do with it. That chance, I mean, not the education, the chance. That's what matters. You know, Patrick Ben III said, well, he's not as wealthy as some other kids, and he had disadvantages. Go back in history, Patrick. You know, there were times when people learned a great deal about a great many things, and what they were using was a piece of chalk on a little bitty blackboard on their desk. That didn't take a whole lot of money. It's not about money. It's about commitment to learning. It's about a commitment to learning the basic facts. Now, if you're going to a school that wants to teach you politics instead of basic facts, that's the problem, not wealth. And by the way, I just have to point this out. You know, the left, realizing that if they're going to change the country, they got to start with kids. They've politicized our schools and all that stuff. It's not working. This grand egalitarianism isn't working. Because you're not forcing kids to actually succeed. Education is rigorous, and what we're doing is we're taking the rigor out of it. What for? Because we're not educating a populace. We're creating a populace that will do political bidding. And once again, it makes no difference which side you're on. Conservative political bidding is just as bad as leftist political bidding when it comes to our children. And so the Supreme Court has got to figure this out, and naturally, the mainstream media is right there. Oh, man, poor Patrick Ben III. Obstacles at every turn. All he wanted to do was go to college. If you want to go to college, do yourself a favor. Start getting A's. Start getting A's at every turn. Every chance you get an A. Some courses will be easy. Some courses will be difficult. Some courses will be made nearly impossible because you can get the right answer, but because your politics are wrong, you still get graded down. You got to get out of schools like that. You got to get out of schools like that. I was talking to somebody who was reading Michelle Obama's biography, and she talked about how her parents made education the kid's priority. And one of the points in the book was somebody saying, hey, wait a minute, why do you guys talk like white people? Like I said, there's a mountain of work to be done. This is the Wells Report. Back in a moment. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 3 minutes. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 2 minutes. You're listening to the Wells Report, which will return in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. This is the Wells Report. Little bickering going on in the chat room today. It's fascinating. You know, we have this chat room and there's a show going on that, well, the chat room's supposed to be a part of the show and everybody's talking about something else. Well, some people are. Let's see. Everybody does not have to have the same chance. That's the myth of meritocracy. There is no myth of meritocracy, Chris. Meritocracy is the best and brightest. Do you believe that the best and brightest, and that gets down to a basic question, do you believe that the best and brightest belong in the nation's universities? Do you believe that the compact between a child and his or her education is that the kids are given a chance to succeed? given a wide range of educational endeavor to be able to find which one they do best? Or do you believe that we shouldn't necessarily demand the best and brightest in American universities? And what we should do is we should essentially give people that are really good C and B and C class, that get B's and C's. Should we put those people in college? See, what I think you're missing is that college is not a passport to riches. We wouldn't have a crisis regarding student loans if kids were actually learning something that they could make a living with in college. Meanwhile, I know a kid who went to a trade school, is a diesel car mechanic, and has just bought his second house. Not everybody has to get a college education. But merit is not a myth. Richer parents can afford to send their kids to expensive private schools, hire private tutors, pay for SAT prep courses. Right. That's correct. So why is it that children, when you start thinking about expensive schools, there's no school in the world more expensive than American public schools? Why are public schools not as good or better than private schools? Take a look at a government building, for example. Is a government building built better than your house? The answer is yes. Why isn't public school outperforming private school? I'll tell you why. Because public schools are political dens of mediocrity. That's why. They hire private tutors. Why should you have to hire a private tutor for your kid if they're struggling? Public schools ought to have that. God knows they have the money. We have teachers. We have educators. Educators are not teachers. They're also not principals. We also have principals. So we have principals and educators, whatever those are, and we have teachers. We've created another job title. Why aren't they tutors? Why aren't they subject matter experts, not just in a particular subject that a student might have trouble with, but also an expert educator that can identify exactly what a kid needs to be able to be exposed to? I'm a kinetic learner. I do better when I have hands on things. I do better when there's a practical application for what I'm learning. I don't have any math at all if it wasn't for the fact that somebody gave me a technical math textbook, because technical math is about getting the right answer. Mathematics in public school is about learning the process. I don't give a crap about the process. I want the answer. I want it to be accurate. Technical math is my way out of this abyss that I was thrown into thanks to something called new math, which was stupid, was new idiocy, was so bad there was a college course to untangle us. Pay for SAT prep courses. I want to know just exactly why public schools don't have SAT prep for juniors in high school. Why is it not a full year course? God knows they have the money. We spend billions upon billions upon billions of dollars on public schools just in Texas. It's because of politics. I tell you, the politics poisons everything. I'm not kidding. Politics poisons everything. So don't tell me the meritocracy is wrong. Don't tell me it's a myth, Chris, for crying out loud. That's ridiculous. The best and the brightest, man. The best and the brightest. Public schools should be able to teach all these kids everything they need from a factual standpoint. What to do with the facts comes in college. Why wouldn't you want people that have a factual knowledge to go to college, that are familiar with the facts, that are maybe even experts on the facts? Why would you want them to go to college to learn how to use them? Yeah, they don't want to teach for the test. Absolutely they do. Of course they want to teach for the test. Yeah, we're not going to teach you how to pass the SAT score with a really good number because somehow that's cheating. Excuse me? You're not teaching the test. You're teaching the skills to do well on the test. Isn't that what education is supposed to be in the first place? I don't mean to obliterate you with logic, Chris, but sorry. You just got me at a bad moment. This is the Wells Report. Thanks for watching. I got to go. Peace, love, and joy, and I'll see you again tomorrow. All righty. I really have to go. I love you. Hey, by the way, did you notice that that actually there was just a little bit of more competence in today's technical broadcast? Yeah. I'll see what I can do about getting that even more refined here in a little bit. God bless you, and